Now that we've drawn the basic shapes, we're going to go to the surface of these shapes with a technique called contour surface lines. We're going to start like before with the cube and figure out how the contour surface lines fit on the cube. On the front, you can see they just copy the edges of the lines of the cube. Same with the top. They run parallel to the two sets of lines on each of the different sides of the cube. So this is what the contour of the cube would look like. This is going to be a little different when you draw the contour surface lines on the cylinder. First of all, the up and down lines of the cylinder will create one array of lines that move across the surface. The second system will be the curved lines that run parallel to the top and the bottom of that surface. Now, if you want a flat top, the contour runs horizontal. If you want it to have a hole in it, the contour lines run down into the cylinder with vertical lines. When you try and figure out the contour of the sphere, I find it easiest to think about a sun hitting the sphere. And where it hits would be like high noon on the sphere. Gradually, patterns move from that out across the sphere all the way to the back side of the sphere. So that would be one of the contours. And then the opposite contour is a straight line through the center of the sphere with an array of lines that progressively curve out more and more as they go out from the straight line. And then back to a straight line right up on the top. This contour surface line technique really comes in handy when you're trying to build like a new automobile or a new spaceship, because it actually makes it look like one object rather than all of these cubes and cylinders and spheres. Pretty soon you don't really notice that's even what it is. So you pick and round off all of those rough corners with the proper contour, and adding the contour together, you can see that it starts to round this off and work it into one continuous flowing form. I think that's what's really important with this, is that it gives you the surface of the object rather than just the edges of an object. So once again, if you start combining these together and you're going to make some kind of a creature out of it, it's hard to see it as a realistic creature when it's all these hard, boxy lines. But when you add the contour to it, it all of a sudden becomes one flowing shape. And it's a much more smooth looking creature, just becomes much more realistic. Now you've got to make sure that when you're drawing these that you know, okay, this is a cylinder here, this is a cube, the sphere head. So you got to work with the right contours on this. And going back and studying those basic shapes and what the contours are very, very important in order to get this to work right. Henry Moore, a great sculptor from England, used these contour surface lines in his artwork. Now this is more like what Henry Moore thought of. You see, there isn't even an outside edge to this hand. It's just the surface lines. Human forms can come out of this kind of drawing without an outside edge of any kind. He liked that in sculpture because it showed what the shape was he was about to create. I think it's a great way to bring a drawing to life. This is a human drawn with the basic solids, but looks like a mannequin to start with. But watch once we start using the contour surface lines, how it becomes much more to life. You get the feeling of the surface of the objects rather than just the outside edges. I think it just really does bring it to life a lot more. This is an interesting one to show because a tree kind of goes back in space and then sometimes the branches bend out towards you, and the contour really gives you that sense. Landscape is good too. See how it shows what kind of actual shape that is? Otherwise it'd just be a single line back there, but this gives you the flow of how the land moves and what kinds of shapes it becomes. Even the leaves on the tree can be done in this style to give it more dimension. Now the background that's happening right now is more like a cubical background, so it has sort of flat, straight lines that come out of it. If you were a painter, this would be the way your stroke would go. If you're doing drawing and shading, these are the directions that your lines go when you try and do shading. I hope you enjoyed that video on contour lines. Contour lines are incredibly important in drawing. You don't overly see them in books, but I think you'll see when we get into this, it even helps you with your realism. And we're going to take on a realistic object, this little pickup, and see if we can draw it and show how the contour lines come into this. And we're going to start it though, just like we start a lot of the others, with the basic solid shapes. And the cube is mainly what this is, but it does have some cylinders and some spherical shapes across the top of the hood and whatnot. So first I have to find the artistic position. And the way I see it, it would be tipped up in order to fit with our system too. Because we don't draw it exactly like we see it, we draw it like we know how we can construct it. And I'm going to take it on like this, and I see 3 different cubes in this. A little cube in the front, this, and almost the same size cube in the back, straight across. So let's start with that. Let's start with the front of the truck here, like so. That's going to be just this front part. Project back in space like we do with 3 parallel lines. Okay, and then cut it off, and I think it's going to get cut off about there to get the proportion of this pickup. So that would be the very beginning. Now we've got the big part that's going to come up here, and I'm going to say it looks like it's about here. Projects back in space again, parallel to these lines. So we're gradually constructing this out of blocks, you might say. And this comes down. Okay, so this runs straight up and down. I'm going to run this straight up and down so we see the different blocks. This would run right straight through. It looks like it's running right even with the front, and cut that off. I'm going to run it back just a little bit further, like that. And we can readjust these as we go along. You don't want this back line here to run into that line. You want to make sure you get it artistically twisted, because that would make it confusing. And I'm going to get my little Q-tip here, kind of erase a little bit of this. All right, and maybe even this, just straighten it up. Okay, now I'm going to subtract these lines because we don't need them anymore. We've got the basic cubes there. All right, this looks like it actually should come up a little bit though, to be straight with that line. So I'm going to readjust that up to here, kind of come across. straight like that and have it be like so. Let me just erase some of this. This will all get shifted around so much by the time we get done that to make sure it's right. But that's sort of the beginning of what this looks like. Okay, now is when some of the contour stuff starts to come in. In order to get this to be a curved windshield, this has to swing across like this instead of running straight up and down. And this would swing across like this, which means this line, there'd be a contour for the round windshield in the front like that would run through it. I'm going to do a little erasing here in between so we get the sense of that. That gives us the round windshield. I'm going to get rid of this boxy side over here. And we've got the round windshield. You can see where the contour helps me out there. Same thing is happening in the front, right up in here. This, to start with, I'm going to curve, the front is curved around. So it's going to be kind of swinging out like this for a line instead of that. So there's a bit of a cylinder there. And the same thing here, this would swing around like, so I'm going to hook it in here though, so it hooks in with that. Now let's just erase again here and get rid of the top of that box. Like I say, this gets readjusted and readjusted a lot. This is going to be taken off. That corner, this corner is going to be taken off. All right, so now we have the roundedness, but it doesn't come to a real sharp, it's a slight curve in here. And that's the contour of that cylinder would look something like that. And I can actually do a little erasing in between here so that we get the major line sort of subtracted. Oh, we're coming along pretty good so far. The bottom of this also curves out. So this would have a slight curve out, like so. And I'm going to erase that harsh line. But the cube really does get you started very, very well. It's just that you have to adjust it a little bit along the way. All right, so there. And this actually goes back in space. I'm probably going to project this back a little ways because otherwise there's not a second seat back there. So I'm going to push this back a little ways here, which means I'm going to push this back a little ways there. And let's see here. It gives us a little bit more room for the doors for the poor people to sit in here. And then this comes across, straight across here. All right, and this line has to now move up a little. So as you go along, you can kind of readjust your lines to get it to fit the right proportion. I've been doing this for many, many years, and I still have to readjust, readjust, and readjust. Okay, so now we've got a little bit more space back here, and we're going to put a few of the details in here, like the window here comes down, swings down, about like that, cuts back straight. That's one window, and the second one back here runs something on that order. All right, so we've got that. Let me get. Okay, so we got the windows in there. Now we need a line for the door. It goes all the way to the bottom, which comes right straight from here down, and from right here straight down. So that's the door handle right there. All right, and let's jump up here a little bit. And okay, well, yeah, this line now turns into this kind of a contour. It makes a nice rounded shape. So we'll get rid of some of that line, and you can see the contours are starting to give you the shape. Shading will do this too, but at this stage it's nice to get the contour to help. I'm going to do this front grille. The front grille runs from about here, swings across. It helps to kind of give some of the shape of what that area is, what it looks like. So the little grill here coming across, and then the windows are right next to that. It looks like they just actually run and curve around a little bit, like so. And this one the same way, kind of almost goes out of sight. So that would be the windows. Looks like there's like a little detail light, like almost like a little eyeball there looking at you. Okay, now let's jump back to the cylinders of the wheels. Figure out where they're located. They come in about right here, and they come right in front of the door. So it's a curve like something like that, the front bumper area. All right, and in the back, it's back in right below, it's right in between these 2 points right here. So I'm going to find a point, know that it's got to come that height down, and swing a curve into that, and get rid of this line. All right, so now we just need wheels in there. And the wheels would be, they're on a slant, so they'd be ovals that would be fitting in here. And they've got to get down to about in here to make sure they get on the ground, and they're the things that touch the ground, not the rest of the body, hopefully. Or else you got a really bad car or truck. All right, so this should, if you actually line this up across, should hit the bottom of that too. And then the little hubcap area in here has to run and echo the same shape as the tire, of course, and the depth going back. The depth has to do just like our cube did. It goes back in space like this and curves around. Now, do you see the other tire? This is how you find out. You project this back in here, and you can see that you wouldn't, because it's, if you're running like our, let's see, I think it actually, it should be a little bit more, maybe you do. Comes across, maybe you see, and that back tire would be about here. So maybe it would just slightly show right here, if this is straight across. All right, and you'd have the thickness there. See if that looks right. Looks kind of right. Maybe it should be back a little. I think it should be back in here, so that this, something on that order. And they should be both twisted the same way, or else you have a big problem with your pickup. You maybe ran into too many trees or something with it. Okay, now, there should be, you can't see this back little line because it's not far enough over, so you wouldn't see any depth, but you would see this line that would be the back end of the pickup. And I'm gonna add some contours to that just to make it show up. And just to add, now this is actually a rounded off shape here too. So none of these actually in the end are straight line cubical shapes. But it still helps to start with, to use the cube to help you get to it. So that ends up rounding off even on the back side here. So this actually curves into that. And the contour of this would run across like this, and also this way. And that's where these lines come from for the window. And the window probably, in order to really make it show up, you might use a crosshatch on it. I'm going to use this stroke, and it runs to about right there, and so it just gets a little darker. We get into shading, you'd have the shading to help do that. And there is a definite line where the window comes in. All right, so let's see where we are. Okay, the rest of the contour, I'll just quickly do a little contour on all of this. These, in order to make them look flat, if there's a contour, it would run right back in space like that, just like these lines do. These lines would run up and down. I'm using a little skinnier line for this. And they actually, this kind of bulges out. So I mean, if it were done properly, these would be slightly bulging like this for that part of the pickup. And then, like I said, this would be rounded off here, come down to here. And you can see you're getting, and the hood would have a slight hump in the middle of it, like that. And it would curve into this side and would fit into these contours over on this side. This would the front part would come like this. That would be the contour of that whole front part, and you can see it starts to bring it to life a little bit. The windows would be pretty flat across, maybe just one. You might just pick one set of the contours, and this back corner should be slightly curved. So you can kind of see where the contour lines come in to all of this. These would run straight up and down back here to help you know that that's running that direction. And that kind of shows how you can put contour lines onto a realistic image. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching this episode.